What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at Data Dash, and today is June 4th of 2020. Well, folks, I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are. And in today's video, we're not only going to be talking about a key indicator that I personally like to use that on the longer term time frames is signaling that the next super cycle is upon us when it comes to Bitcoin and altcoins. But outside of that as well, we've got to talk about how Ethereum is swallowing up the entire sector of blockchain innovation when it comes to DeFi, enterprise adoption, and yes, even the Federal Reserve using blockchain in some capacity. We'll talk about that as we go throughout the video. Let's just go ahead and dive right into it. Taking a look here over the last 24 hours, the vast majority of cryptocurrencies are in a no trend scenario between 1 to 2% to the upside or downside. Nothing too crazy or volatile at the moment. We've got a few projects here starting to enter into double-digit territory like Loopring, Sia Coin, and also Theta, doing quite nicely. Now, taking a look here, I want to go ahead and talk about the indicator and just be straight to the point and blunt. I'm talking about the SMS indicator. Now, this was an indicator that we put together. I did it with my friend Sandeep, who's one of our Dash Report subscribers, a long-time viewer of the channel, and a good friend of mine as well. He was very kind enough to go through the process of building this indicator. It's really an aggregate indicator. It takes in three of my favorite ones that I like to use personally that I talked about in my macro trading series, which were the squeeze momentum indicator, in this case the MACD, and then also the stochastic RSI, right? So a good mix of oscillators in there. But generally speaking, this is a good indicator that I will use on longer term time frames, such as the weekly or the monthly. But in my opinion, it's tended to be that the longer the time frame, the more significant, because as a macro trader, I like to trade on the bigger swings, right? I like to trade the cycles. I want to know when Bitcoin is setting a low, right, for its overall cycle after going near an 80% correction or more. And along with that, I like to ride these waves, right? I want to be able to ride them and sell them at their tops, right? So I don't want to try to trade too much, right? I want to hold some positions throughout these longer Bitcoin cycles that may increase my Bitcoin position, but I don't really want to trade too much, right? I want to keep it as minimal as possible, right? So taking a look here at the SMS, it's generally speaking that when we flip over to 3 points or higher, where it will start to turn green, that's when we're going bullish, right? It is, again, it's not a guarantee. You shouldn't just trade off this indicator, guys. I promise you, it will not be the only thing that guarantees that you win or lose in this market, right? It's one of the many things that you can use in your toolbook, and this is all free. You can access it, and we're not selling it. It's completely free. You can get it on TradingView, and Sandeep was nice enough to put it together. And you can see that as we started back here, for example, in 2015, we started to flatten out here and also started to get a follow through in volume here on the upside. We started to see here that not only price reflected it, but also we got a flip here back. I think the first month that we had it on was July of 2015. So right down here in this bottom range, and outside of a small anomaly here when we had, for example, the one of the few pullbacks and stuff before we got back up to the previous highs. That was the one time it dipped below. But for the most part, it held above that 3-point limit in that case. Requirement in order to stay bullish throughout the whole process until we actually got here to the peak of the cycle. Now, outside of what we had back here as well, right, when we had this kind of breakout here as we've been building up a wedge over the last few years, we've now flipped up for the first time since all the way back here in April of 2019 to the upside. And this is why I keep stressing here specifically on Bitcoin, but also to the broader cryptocurrency space as a whole, that we're starting to see price action that's signaling pretty big confidence. Now, again, taking off our drawings here, you can just start to see here that we've been building up this wedge for some time. We've started to almost do a V shape in the sense of the higher low here comparative to the previous lows. And it's a matter now of getting up back above here around 14,000, breaking up above there, getting back to 20K and retesting that. The time frame for that, who knows? It could be the next couple of weeks. Something crazy could happen. But much more realistically, it's going to be over the next 6 months. Sorry about that. It's going to be over the next 6 months, in this case, in my opinion. But let's just go ahead and take a look at a few more cryptocurrencies, right? So we've got Ethereum here, right? Ethereum flipped here on the SMS indicator compared to Bitcoin all the way back here in October of 2019, right? And ever since then, we've actually been setting a higher level. And the technical formation, guys, I mean, just taking a look at this on the standard chart, not even the logarithmic, this looks fantastic to me personally, because you not only had a great rebound here, you've seen that same kind of V-shaped recovery here for Ethereum over the last 4 to 5 months, and now it looks like we're coming back up to get above there. We've been setting consecutive higher lows ever since back here when we flipped on the indicator. Really nice to see. Let's take a look at NEO. NEO right now already starting to show some early warning signs back here in the late part of 2019 going into January. And now we've got a full 5 points on the indicator. So it's important to note that if you're up to 5 points, like all indicators are at top performance there. The bull momentum is huge. Now, I want to explain something here. You see back here, when NEO was going off the rocks, like a lot of other altcoins, you might ask yourself, Nick, why is it that the SMS was down in the red for so long? And it's because you need to be able to have some time, especially if you're doing monthly time frames. You're going to need some time for the actual indicators to start actually having enough data or price action to start collecting and being able to project themselves on the screen. So again, many of you probably might know this, but if you don't, it's no worries. It just basically means that after some time, we can finally start to use the base indicators that define this aggregate indicator, the SMS indicator. So hopefully that makes good sense. Outside of that as well, ADA, we have not gotten the flip on yet, but just in the past month, really the last month or two, we've actually been able to calculate a point each month, and now we're setting up likely, if we continue the green price action here, to possibly either this month or next month set up towards 3 points and get that flip for the first time in ADA's history. Really exciting to see here. Cardano has been coming back with a pretty big fire. Along with that, one of the big ones that we've been supportive of, and we've been long back here since around September to October 2019, down around the 2,000 Satoshi range, we can see here that we not only had some climbing points here, but now we finally got the 3-point cross here in the beginning month or the beginning part of June. And now we're pressing up towards historical resistance that we haven't gotten to test or break above since really ever since this line has been formulating here. So it's very fascinating to see this kind of bullish price action, the ascending triangle, the breakout, the follow through where we're holding the majority of those gains, and now looking like we might snap right through and continue on for the further rally. So in the sense of TA, guys, this is really good to see. The SMS indicator on the longer term time frames shows a lot more relevancy than the daily or the hourly. I don't use it for that. I've used it always on the weekly and the monthly, and to see this coming up on the monthly makes me extremely confident. Now again, people's time frames are very are very short term, right? People want to see things in a week or two. This is not signaling that over the next week or two we're going to have a massive breakout. It signals that over the next few months, the next few years, that we're likely going to get some follow through on this already positive trend that we've seen on cryptocurrencies compared to Bitcoin, and then also Bitcoin as a base currency as well, leading the way. So really, really important stuff, and I recommend you guys download this indicator, use it for yourself. I know we have some people from the Dash Report who use it, and a few others. Wanted to just kind of build on this point, though. One of the ones that's been standing out to me, and I think, of course, you need not only Bitcoin to lead the market, but also Ethereum to do quite well, to lead the broader altcoin space, to speak to the excitement for enterprise development on blockchain, as well as DeFi. And interestingly enough, Dan Tapiro basically put an interesting chart here. Again, not overcomplicating things. Outside of the SMS, guys, I really don't use many indicators out there in the market. You don't need to. A lot of it is a lot of noise. Most people who are successful traders are naked traders. They're looking for a few key things, and no, they're not naked. The major things that they're looking for are support and resistance, and they're looking for general price levels of tension, right? And that again speaks to support and resistance here. You can see that we've got a general line here, right? Surely he has some moving averages here, but the major thing that Dan Tapiro is pointing out here, and to give him credence to, is I give him credit in this sense, is that he's basically just focusing on the major points and the recent highs and how they line up through a line of resistance. And if we are to break above this, that's a big psychological barrier that's been broken, right? 250 is the key level here because you not only have a big even level at $250, you also have the previous highs lining up to provide that point of resistance at a lower level than previously before. So I like Dan Tapiro's chart here. This is really nice to see. Now, going on here towards some of the fundamentals, the Federal Reserve, out of all people, I just wanted to start with this because I don't think many people would believe it. The Federal Reserve is actually exploring using Ethereum in order to utilize a certain tool that's been built on a permissioned aspect of Ethereum as an alternative to the LIBOR rate. Now, for those of you who don't know, the LIBOR rate is the interbank lending rate that banks pay to one another to borrow capital. The LIBOR rate, basically, let's say, for example, it's 2%. It would mean that if JP Morgan wanted to, for example, provide a short-term loan to Goldman Sachs would pay 2%, right? And it varies over time. It's a variable rate, just like most rates in the world. Now, to be completely fair here, as I mentioned, this is a permission technology on Ethereum. It's called Ameribor in this case, so it's going to be an American LIBOR rate equivalent, as in this case, the LIBOR rate had a big issue back over the last few years. There was hundreds of billions of dollars in costs, hitting costs and stuff that actually came in due to manipulation of the LIBOR rate. So because of this, the Fed, as well as many other banks across the world, had a massive incentive to actually try to fix this. Now, in the sense of the actual technicals, the way that it generally works is that there's a token swap between the two parties. It's a permission network, so like you again have to not only be invited to participate in it, but outside of that as well, the companies themselves have to volunteer to participate to actually make Ameribor the new kind of standard. But there's basically token swaps between both of the companies that on this permission part of Ethereum signifies certain parts of the transaction of the loan. So it's very interesting. I'd recommend reading into it. Jason Brett wrote a good article here on Forbes. It's just another signal, though, of that kind of confidence coming in. But it's not just the Fed and institutions and the banking industry. Ethereum is starting to eat up the entire cryptocurrency space when that comes to other crypto assets and in regards to DeFi. So one of them here is become the fact that Ethereum has become the main chain, or the top-off chain destination for Bitcoin. So again, really interesting stuff here. This is the biggest story I think that really no one talked about. I think a few maybe people talked about in the space, but the sheer fact that there's been a massive amount of Bitcoin moving over to Ethereum. Some people might ask, how do you do that? Well, they do it through the form of a wrapped token, wrapped Bitcoin. And it's basically when you're packaging a certain asset on the Ethereum blockchain that you can send and receive through the form of an ERC20 token. So to explain it simply, let's say that I'm the custodial provider for wrapped Bitcoin. You give me your Bitcoin. We have it in a custodial solution. Or maybe in the case of like RenVM, for example, how they're having more of a decentralized solution. It's basically allowing you on a singular network to be able to swap assets, in this case, trade assets, send and receive that same asset between different areas. And it's a voucher token, right? It's a voucher token to reclaim Bitcoin back through the Ethereum network, right? So it's very, very interesting. They just had a huge move here. I'll go ahead and show you here on DeFi Pulse of not only DeFi just generally growing here, right? This is, again, practically most of this is all on Ethereum. But right here, for example, you see this huge spike in Bitcoin, and some people would say, look, Bitcoin's winning out of the DeFi ecosystem where it got a huge jump. It's not that. The Bitcoin moved into wrapped Bitcoin. So this is for Ethereum's network to transfer Bitcoin over Ethereum. There is now, I think, nearly 2 or 3 times more Bitcoin in wrapped Bitcoin from this single jump alone than there is on the entire Lightning Network. I mean, if we were so pumped up about the Lightning Network for all these years, and this can happen overnight and it gets no coverage, that's a bit disappointing to me. I think there's a bit of a bias here. But anyways, I'll try to keep my stark opinions to myself. You can see here, along with this, stablecoins. Stablecoins, one of the biggest components of the cryptocurrency space, whether you like it or not, right? I know we understand that the USD is getting devalued and things of that sort. And yes, dollars at the end of the day are controlled by the monetary policy of central banks, like the Federal Reserve. However, dollars are relevant. They're used for payments, and they are probably the preferred method across the world for a standard store value, in this case, for people who live in developing countries or doing commerce in developing countries outside of just the United States. So to see stablecoins now actually setting gas fees quite high on the Ethereum network, even though that's a bad thing, we don't want fees high on the network. At the same time, it speaks to the utility. And we can see here that, again, are probably considered to be the most expensive aspect of the Ethereum network. Stablecoins are starting to rise up these gas fees as we've started to see more payment apps being built on the forefront of Ethereum. And I can speak a little bit to this and stuff. I've been building an application on Ethereum for some time, and this is an actual concern that a lot of us have. Many of us are looking towards the 2.0 upgrades for Ethereum as it moves to proof of stake, as it starts to implement some Ethereum improvement proposals to scale. But all in all, I think this is proving a huge use case for Ethereum and how it basically swallowed up the entire Tether, not the entire Tether supply, but a good amount of the Tether supply over the last few months as there's been a migration over to Ethereum. And also for other stablecoins out there as well, such as the more regulated ones like USDC. And also, there's rumors that Visa and their digital fiat tokens that they're going to be making for the dollar are likely going to be on Ethereum. So if this isn't proof enough that Ethereum is coming in and is coming in big time, then I highly recommend you guys keep looking into the network, keep learning about it. There's so much going on. DeFi is one of the most interesting trends I've seen, and after a pretty bloody March back here where MakerDAO, which has the stablecoin DAI, it went through a lot of issues as there was a lot of liquidations with the price drop. We've had a nice steady recovery back on the standard uptrend here, and it looks like sometime this summer we could very well be breaking out to new highs above the previous $1.2 billion target of total value being locked up in DeFi. I think over the next few years, into the next peak, we're going to have billions upon billions of dollars locked up in this ecosystem. And I can't wait to see it happen because I think there's so much hidden potential that's going to come out in fruition over the next few months. And it's going to get people real excited about what truly decentralized finance can look like. All right, guys. Well, that's it for the video. I appreciate you all for watching. And one thing I wanted to share with you all as well, just as one of our sponsors for the channel, as the tax season has been extended here with everything going on with all the events over the last few months where there's been the lockdown, TaxBit is a really great tool for those of you if you haven't done your taxes. They've been one of our long-term sponsors and partners here on the channel. And I recommend, if you haven't done it yet, TaxBit lets you aggregate all your exchanges and generate your tax forms extremely simply. So check out the link down below in the description. You get a discount if you use my code down below. But I highly recommend them. TaxBit's a great platform. And I'm good friends with Austin and the team and stuff. Really nice guys. So anyways, that's it in regards to crypto markets, guys. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Consider dropping that like if you like the video, and also consider subscribing as well as hitting that bell icon if you don't want to miss another episode here. If there's something you want me to talk about in a future episode, please leave it down in the comments down below as well. I'd always appreciate it. All right? Anyways, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay tuned.